The Bible is a book of many stories, and this is the story of Esther.
Long ago, when the world was ruled by kings and empires rose and fell like the sun, there lived a monarch whose power stretched from the mountains of India to the deserts of Ethiopia. His name was Ahasuerus, king of Persia, ruler of 127 provinces, lord of the greatest empire the world had ever known. But this is not a story about his power. It is a story about a girl the empire never saw coming, an orphan, hidden in plain sight, who would rise from obscurity to save an entire people. Her name was Esther, and this is her story. In the 3rd year of his reign, King Ahasuerus threw a feast unlike any the world had seen. For 180 days he displayed the riches of his kingdom to princes and nobles. From every province, gold and marble, wine that flowed like rivers, couches of silver set upon floors of colored stone. When that feast ended, he held another 7 days of celebration for every citizen of the capital city of Susa, great and small alike, in the garden courtyard of his palace. Meanwhile, in the palace halls, Queen Vashti hosted a feast of her own for the women of the court. She was a woman of extraordinary beauty, proud and dignified. No one imagined that on the final night of celebration, her name would become a warning whispered through the empire for years to come. On the 7th day, with his heart merry with wine, the king sent for Vashti, commanding her to appear before his guests, wearing her royal crown, that all might gaze upon her beauty. It seemed a simple request, but Vashti refused to come. Why she refused, no one can say for certain. Perhaps it was pride. Perhaps it was dignity. A queen unwilling to be paraded before a hall of drunken men like an ornament rather than honored as a ruler. Whatever her reason, her answer was final. And in a court where a king's word was law, even quiet defiance could not be forgiven. Furious and humiliated before his nobles, the king turned to his wise men, and they warned him of something greater than his wounded pride. If word spread that the queen had defied the king and suffered no consequence, women across the empire might learn to despise their husband's authority. So it was decreed, written into the unchangeable law of the Medes and Persians, that Vashti would never again come before the king. Her royal position would be given to another, someone better than she. In a single evening, an empire's queen fell from her throne, and no one yet knew that far from the palace walls, in the modest home of a Jewish exile, a young girl was being raised who would one day fill it. Her name was Hadassah, though the world would come to know her as Esther. She was an orphan, her mother and father long dead, raised by her older cousin Mordecai as though she were his own daughter. Mordecai was a Jew living in Susa, a descendant of those carried into exile generations before when Babylon conquered Jerusalem. He served at the king's gate, a minor official among thousands, unnoticed by the great and powerful. But he loved Esther fiercely, and he had raised her well. She was said to be lovely in form and face, but it was her quiet strength and humility that set her apart. When the king's anger cooled, his attendants proposed a search. Let beautiful young women be gathered from every province of the empire, brought to the palace at Susa, and prepared for the king, that he might choose a new queen from among them. Officers were sent throughout the provinces, and among the many young women taken to the palace was Esther. Mordecai's heart must have broken to send her, but refusal was not a choice given to a subject of the king. So Esther entered the palace, and Mordecai gave her one instruction that would shape everything that followed. Tell no one that you are a Jew, not your people, not your family. Keep it hidden. In the royal palace, Esther was placed under the care of Hegai, a king's eunuch in charge of the women, who was tasked with a full year of preparation for each woman before she could be presented to the king. 6 months with oil of myrrh, 6 months with perfumes. Yet from the very beginning, something about Esther set her apart. She pleased Hegai, and he was quick to give her the best place in the harem, along with 7 maids chosen especially for her. And every day, though he could not enter the palace himself, Mordecai walked in front of the courtyard, quietly asking after her, watching over her from a distance the only way he could. When Esther's turn came to go before the king, she took nothing with her but what Hegai advised, no jewelry of her own choosing, no elaborate display, only the simple wisdom of a man who had seen 100 women try too hard to be noticed. And she was noticed. Of all the women gathered from across the empire, Esther won the king's favor and kindness more than any other. He set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen in Vashti's place. The king did not know she was a Jew at Mordecai's command. She had not revealed it, not to her attendants, not even to the king himself. She wore a golden crown in a foreign palace, queen of an empire that did not know her true identity, or the identity of the people she came from. Not long after, while Mordecai sat at the king's gate as he always did, he overheard 2 of the king's guards speaking in low, angry voices, plotting to assassinate King Ahasuerus. Mordecai told Esther what he had heard, and Esther reported it to the king, giving credit to Mordecai by name. The plot was investigated, found true, and the 2 conspirators were hanged. The event was recorded in the official chronicles of the kingdom, a small detail, seemingly forgotten. But nothing written in a king's record is ever truly forgotten. It would matter later, more than anyone could have known. Some time after this, the king promoted a man named Haman above all the other officials in his court, elevating him to the highest position in the empire beneath the king himself. All the king's servants at the gate would bow low before Haman whenever he passed, for the king had commanded it. All of them bowed, except one. Mordecai would not bow. He would not kneel. Day after day, the other officials at the gate questioned him. Why would he defy the king's own command over a man so powerful? Mordecai gave them only one answer. He was a Jew, and he would bow to no man as though he were a god. When word of this reached Haman, and he saw with his own eyes that Mordecai would not bow, he was filled with rage. But killing Mordecai alone was not enough to satisfy him. When Haman learned that Mordecai was a Jew, he resolved to destroy not just this one defiant old man at the gate, but every Jew in the entire Persian Empire, Mordecai's whole people, wiped from existence because of the pride of a single official. Haman cast lots, called Purim, to determine the most favorable day to carry out his plan. Then he went to the king with a proposal, carefully worded to hide its horror. "There is a certain people," he said, "scattered through every province of your kingdom, whose laws are different from everyone else's, who do not keep the king's laws. It is not fitting for the king to tolerate them. If it pleases the king, let a decree be written that they be destroyed." And Haman offered an enormous sum of silver into the royal treasury to see it done. The king did not ask who this people was. He simply removed his signet ring and gave it to Haman, granting him full authority. "Do with them as you see fit," he said. And so, on the 13th day of the first month, the decree went out on fast horses to every province of the empire, written in every language and script, sealed with the king's own ring on a single day, the 13th of the 12th month. All Jews, young and old, women and children, were to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated, and their possessions seized as plunder. The city of Susa was thrown into confusion, and when Mordecai learned of the decree, he tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, and went out into the middle of the city, crying out with a loud and bitter cry. In every province the decree reached. There was mourning among the Jews, fasting, weeping, and wailing, many lying in sackcloth and ashes when word reached Esther in the palace that Mordecai stood outside the gate in mourning clothes. She was deeply distressed. She sent him fresh garments, but he refused them. So she sent her attendant to learn what troubled him. And Mordecai told him everything, the full account of Haman's plot, and the exact sum of silver promised. For the destruction of the Jews, he gave the messenger a copy of the written decree to show Esther, urging her to go to the king to plead for her people. But Esther sent back a warning of her own. Anyone who approached the king in his inner court without being summoned, man or woman, faced death, unless the king extended his golden scepter in mercy, and she had not been called to the king in 30 days. Mordecai's reply to her has echoed across centuries. Do not imagine, he said, that because you are in the king's house, you alone will escape when all other Jews are destroyed. If you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? There it was, the question underneath everything. Not why had Esther become queen, but for what? Esther sent her answer back to Mordecai. Gather all the Jews in Susa, she said, and fast for me. Do not eat or drink, day or night, for 3 days. My maids and I will fast as you do, and then I will go to the king, though it is against the law. And if I perish, I perish. For 3 days, Esther did not eat. She did not drink. She prepared not with jewels or elaborate robes, but with prayer and fasting, preparing to walk into a throne room where the wrong word could mean her death. On the 3rd day, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the palace, facing the king's hall, where he sat upon his throne. When the king saw her standing there, uninvited, she found favor in his eyes, and he held out to her the golden scepter in his hand. Esther approached and touched the top of the scepter. "What is it, Queen Esther?" the king asked her. "What is your request?" "Even to half of my kingdom, it will be given to you." Esther did not ask for the decree to be reversed. Not yet. Instead, she asked for something smaller, an invitation. "If it pleases the king," she said, "let the king and Haman come today to a banquet I have prepared." The king agreed at once, and Haman was summoned. At the banquet, over wine, the king again asked Esther what she truly desired, promising again that even half his kingdom would be granted. And again, Esther did not ask. She simply invited them both to a second banquet the following day, promising that then she would answer the king's question. Haman left that banquet elated, boasting to his wife Zeresh and his friends about his wealth, his sons, and the extraordinary honor of being the only man, besides the king, invited to the queen's private table, not once, but twice. Yet none of it satisfied him. He said, so long as Mordecai the Jew still sat at the king's gate, refusing to bow. On Zeresh's advice, Haman ordered a gallows built 75 feet high, intending to ask the king's permission, the very next morning to hang Mordecai upon it before the second banquet even began. That night, the king could not sleep. In his sleeplessness, he ordered the Book of Chronicles, the official royal records, to be brought and read aloud to him. And by what can only be called providence, The passage read that night was the very account of how Mordecai had once uncovered a plot to assassinate the king and saved his life. What honor, the king asked, was given to Mordecai for this? Nothing had been done for him. At that very moment, Haman entered the outer court, intending to ask the king to hang Mordecai. The king summoned him in and asked, without explanation, what should be done for a man the king wishes to honor. Haman, assuming the honor was meant for himself, described an elaborate ceremony, royal robes, the king's own horse, a noble to lead him through the city square, proclaiming his honor before all the people. "Excellent," said the king. "Now, go at once. Take the robes and the horse, just as you described, and do this for Mordecai the Jew, who sits at the palace gate. Leave out nothing you have suggested." So it was Haman himself who dressed Mordecai in royal robes and led him through the streets of Susa on the king's own horse, proclaiming before the entire city the very honor he had built for his own glory. Then Haman returned home in grief and humiliation, covering his head in shame, to find his wife and friends offering him little comfort if Mordecai, before whom he had begun to fall,
was of Jewish descent. They told him
he would not prevail against him. His downfall was only beginning. Before Haman could recover, the king's attendants arrived to bring him to Esther's second banquet. At the banquet, the king asked once more, "What is your petition, Queen Esther? What is your request? Even to half my kingdom, it will be granted."
And this time Esther answered,
"If I have found favor in your sight, O king," she said, "let my life be given me. This is my petition, and the lives of my people, this is my request. For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated." The king, stunned, demanded to know who would dare do such a thing. Who was it, and where was he? Who has presumed in his heart to do this? Esther answered, "A foe and an enemy, this wicked Haman." Haman was terrified before the king and queen. The king rose in fury and walked out into the palace garden. Haman, seeing that his fate was sealed, fell upon the couch where Esther reclined, begging for his life just as the king returned, and the king, seeing him fallen upon the queen in what looked like an assault, was enraged even further. One of the king's attendants mentioned the gallows Haman had built for Mordecai, the very man who had once saved the king's life.
"Hang him on it," the king ordered.
So Haman was hanged on the very gallows he had built for Mordecai, and the king's fury subsided. That same day King Ahasuerus gave Haman's entire estate to Esther, and Esther set Mordecai over it, revealing at last to the king that Mordecai was her cousin, the man who had raised her. The king removed his signet ring, the one he had once given to Haman, and gave it to Mordecai instead. But one problem remained. The original decree, sealed with the king's ring, could not be revoked. The law of the Medes and Persians could not be undone. So a new decree was written, granting the Jews in every city the right to assemble and defend themselves, to fight back against anyone who came to destroy them, and to plunder the possessions of their enemies. It was sent out on fast horses to every province, the same way the first had gone out, only now it carried hope instead of a death sentence. Mordecai left the king's presence in royal robes of blue and white, a great golden crown and a mantle of fine linen and purple, and the city of Susa shouted for joy. For the Jews, there was light and gladness, joy and honor. In every province, wherever the king's new command reached, there was joy and gladness among the Jews, a feast and a holiday. When the appointed day arrived, the very day, Haman had chosen by lot for their destruction. The enemies of the Jews had hoped to overpower them. Instead, the tables were turned, and the Jews gained mastery over those who hated them. Mordecai had become great in the palace, and his fame spread through every province, for he grew more and more powerful. To commemorate this deliverance, Mordecai and Esther established a new festival to be celebrated every year on that same date, calling it Purim, after the lots Haman had cast to destroy them, now turned into a day of feasting, gladness, gift-giving to friends, and generosity to the poor. A day when sorrow was turned into joy and mourning into celebration. It began with an empty throne and a girl no one expected. It became the survival of an entire people because one orphan girl was willing to risk her life for those who could not protect themselves. And one old man understood that some moments in history are not accidents. For such a time as this, and to this day, the story is remembered not because Esther was powerful, or because she asked for a crown, but because when the moment came, she did not stay silent.